This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Welcome back, boys and girls, to another edition of Copy Chief Radio. Here is the Copy Chief, funny man, and your mentor, Kevin Rogers.
No pressure, man. Wearing a lot of hats today. Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Jonathan.
On your show?
Yes,
welcome, sir.
You know, I'd be out wandering around if it wasn't for this. So just glad to be anywhere. This is exciting, man. Really action-packed show today. Bringing on my man, Mike Renard, who has just sort of like come out of nowhere onto the copywriting scene and tapped into this amazing creative vein. And he's just putting out not only great work for his clients that get huge results, but he's also been writing for the blog and very active in the Copy Chief community. And all his stuff is just really eye-opening. He's got a great voice in his writing. And he's a guy you need to know about. And the other cool thing about Mike is that he's a retail. His specialty is retail brand copy. And you just don't see much of that. I get asked quite a bit about, from people in that world. And I just never really had anybody who did that. So it's super cool for me to be able to recommend Mike to people who are looking for retail brand copywriters. So Mike, thanks for being here, bro.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm stoked.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to focus today especially on the article you wrote recently for copychief.com. It's called The 5 Elements of a High Converting Retail Brand Launch. And if you want to get a taste for Mike's writing, this is a great article. It's a good place to start because it's got a lot of personality, adventure. Man, you're great with story. So I'm going to read the beginning of the article because it just sets this whole case study up so perfectly. And then I'm going to let you walk us through these 5 elements from there, Mike, okay?
Sounds good, man.
All right, so here's how it starts. I think it was a dud, man. Nothing is happening, said Brett. Brett is the founder of Territory Run Company, an online retail company in the running outdoor space. We had just pressed go on his latest product launch, an email launch sequence that I wrote, and nothing was happening. My heart dropped into my stomach. I whipped out my phone to check my email. I just got the launch email a minute ago, so maybe it's just a delay in the delivery, I said. And we got busy waiting. Waiting for a product launch to start rolling is like watching a pot of water boil. Is it on? Did you put the burner on high? Maybe we should have added salt to the water. But sure enough, after a few more excruciating minutes, it started happening. And like the pot of water starting to boil, when it happens fast. Sales poured in all day. When we finally closed the cart that night, we had pulled in $19,000 in 12 hours from a list of 2,800 people. Sweet. So, Mike, congratulations on that killer launch. And give us a little context for what this meant for a guy like Brett, who is not in our world of direct response marketing.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was cool. You got a great voice reading that, so that was fun. So yeah, Brett is, he started the brand a few years ago, and for him, this was huge, man, because I think the conversation that we had later that night, we went to get tacos, and we're out in Portland, Oregon, and just kind of hanging out, walking down the street in awe of what had just happened, and so we're having tacos at this little spot, and he's like, dude, what happened in 12 hours there, that's more than I made my first year out of college. That was kind of the standout of like, okay, wow, that was huge, right?
Yeah, some context right there. And that's an amazing thing about marketing and direct response marketing. It's like when it works, it's usually the biggest payday of your life, until the next one. But It's like, it really feels, I always say to people, when they go, I can't get started. And I go, here's the thing, man, make a first sale. I don't care if it's $1. My first sale online of my own product was $7. And I felt my life change on a cellular level. Like I had created something and somebody bought it for $7, and then a bunch of $7 little sales kept rolling in, and it just felt like I'd won the lottery, because now it's proven money can be made this way online, right? And it's magic. So so cool, Mike, and give us just a little backstory about you and your experience in retail real quick, and so people understand your unique perspective, and then we'll dive into these 5 elements.
Sure. Yeah, I've worked in retail for years and some e-commerce as well. And the biggest focus for me was trying to create really great experiences for customers, and experiences where they would walk away saying, "Wow, that was awesome," and also they're walking away with a big bag of stuff that they just bought, right?
Yeah.
And so those are two really important elements, and I think doing that in person is one thing, and doing it online is another thing. Where I see a lot of brands struggling, and where some of the companies that I've worked with really struggled was creating that experience online through email, through their marketing messages that felt real, that felt like it was building a relationship. And so that's what I'm trying to do with a lot of these brands is create that amazing experience for their customers. So whether it's in person or whether it's online in these different marketing platforms that specific to email, that it's creating this amazing experience that their customers love, that it builds a relationship, and very importantly, that it sells a lot of stuff.
Yeah, awesome. And so you use a lot of story in email. That's one of your specialties. It's just a really cool balance. And by the way, I love your emails you've been sending out around your blog to your subscribers. So where can people go get on your list so they can get your emails, Mike?
Oh, thanks, man. So it is www.chimpwolf.com.
Chimpwolf.com. Cool. Yep. Yeah, there's a whole wacky story behind why that's called that, but don't worry about that right now. Just go to pretty easy to remember, I'll say, chimpwolf.com. All right, cool. So tell us, man. So we're sitting here, we're going, hey, I got retail, or I know somebody who needs retail copy. How does it work? How'd you do it? What are the 5 steps?
Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So number 1 is have a conversation. And the important thing here is that you are having a conversation with your customers. The goal is to understand the pain points, desires, and struggles that are going on with your market. And really to understand the number 1 pain point. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but the bigger picture is a lot of brands either have maybe a vague or maybe a more concrete idea of why people are buying and what struggles they have, but it's often disconnected from the customer. So the customer has these very specific problems, a very specific language they use to describe it, and a lot of times the brand they don't quite understand that, right? The way that they think about it is different because they've been doing it for years.
Yeah, you told a story about everybody sitting around kind of in the store, 3 or 4 employees talking about why do people buy or not buy, and throwing out all these ideas and feeling like you've just had this genius brainstorm, and then actually getting some real customer data, a la almost like Ryan Levesque style ask method stuff, and then comparing the two and go, wow, we were totally full of shit. Like we had no idea what. In our minds, we nailed it, but we were so off, right?
Yeah, and the direction was right? Like you want to understand, hey, why are people coming in? What problems do they have? So we were thinking in the right direction, but holding ourselves into this back room and just brainstorming ideas on big pieces of paper was not the way to do it. Because
we just can't be the customer for them. We have to ask. We need to get their words. So, okay, great. So step 2.
Step 2 is once you have that data, and hopefully you've written stuff down from conversations. If it was a survey, you're going to have a spreadsheet, but you want to identify the struggle. And that is just pulling out, what is that pain point? What is it that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, that problem? And when you identify the thread, you want to kind of pull on it a little bit, right? The first thing that people say may not be the ultimate problem that they have. And so you may need to dive a little bit deeper. And the other benefit of diving a little deeper is you're also going to get the language that they use to describe that problem. And that's really important as well.
Absolutely. That's huge. One of the greatest things about what I call the dialogue, really talking to your prospects is that you can't make up the language they use. and there's no other words more powerful than when you use someone's exact words sort of back at them and their avatar. They say that's when people get that, oh my God, it's like you're reading my mind moment. And you kind of go, yeah, I am reading your mind because I asked you what was on it. You know, it wasn't that hard.
Right.
Okay, great. Element number 3.
Okay, element number 3 is find the character. And this is all about having an actual person that people are building a relationship with, right? So one of the original goals we were talking about is we're building a relationship with our customers, and it's tough to do that if, let's say, your emails are coming from a brand name. And I see this all the time. I subscribe to so many brands, and they've got, you know, sometimes great emails, but you get to the end of the email and it's from the brand name, or even worse, you know, the email address is like a no reply email address. And it's, I hate that. Yeah. It's like the opposite of what you want to do, right?
Yeah, we want your opinion, but do not reply to this email because no one will read it. We will hate you for even trying.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the number one sales principles. Like, I've got a strong background in sales. One of the first things I always do when I'm in sales is introduce myself. There's a really strong power in names, and that transcends to all your marketing platforms. So if you have your emails coming from a person, your customers start to build a relationship with that person. They build trust. They look forward to hearing from them. So that's really important.
That's funny you say that. It just occurred to me. That doesn't happen very often in retail. Like in a restaurant, a server always says their name.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Mike. I'll be taking care of you tonight. And but rarely walk into the Gap and have somebody say, "Hey, I'm Mike. What can I help you with today?" Right? Maybe.
Yeah.
So, why is that not trained more?
You know, I think it is in specialty retail, and a lot of my experience comes from specialty retail where it's like this one interaction. So a customer comes in and there's one person that's working with them to fulfill their needs and help them figure out, you know, what it is they need for whatever type of product it is. And in that type of interaction, you're going to have that one-to-one, hey, what's your name? You know, my name's this. Let's go through this. The more transactional kind of retail, you know, where it's just a big company like a Gap, you're not going to see it as often.
Yeah. So you're saying is, Kev, get off some money and quit shopping at places where people wear name tags.
Yeah.
And they'll be more compelled to say your name. I get it.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know.
Louis Vuitton. Why is it, here's a side note. Every time I walk past Louis Vuitton, that there's a big photo of somebody holding an expensive like a handbag, and they look so pissed. Like, why is it like I really hate my new bag? That's, you know, like no one's ever smiling with the stuff. You know, it's like if you're bitchy and like leather, like this, come shop here. You know what I mean? It's just,
they're upset about how much money they just spent.
Maybe that's what. Yeah, she just got the bill.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's go to element number 3 here.
Okay, so then, element number 4 is develop an authentic story around your pain point. And this is where you're just taking that, you know, that struggle that we've identified, and you're developing a story about it. And it's a story that the character we were just talking about, the person that the emails are coming from, they're going to tell this story, and it's going to be about the customer's problems, right? One of the big things here is that, you know, in the article I'm talking about telling this authentic story where you create you know, vulnerability for the person that's telling it, and it's really, really, really powerful. Not all of the stories that you tell are going to be that way. So I think it's important to note that, like, you're going to tell a lot of stories in your marketing messages. I think this is one of the most powerful stories you can tell, and it's a heavy hitter. But you don't have to do this in every single story that you tell.
All right, so give us the context for, because this is a really good one, and talk about the assumption, and then kind of getting Brett past that comfort zone and tell him the story.
Yeah. So when we did the research here, the thing that we found was that the big problem that his customers had was that they didn't have enough time to run, and that's how it was originally voiced. Like, I just don't have time to run, and you know, that's I think that's strong on its own, but we had to pull that thread a little bit. And what we found when we dove a little bit deeper was the not having time to run really means that you have this goal of running, you want to do it, but there's all these things that pop up, right? Life gets busy and there's this resistance, and the distinction is subtle between those two things. Like, I don't have time to run, or all these things are keeping me from running. But I think it's really important, because in the one where things are keeping you from running, there is this like element of this like villain, this common enemy that you can point to and say, that's a bad thing there, that's keeping me from my goals. And we're talking about how to overcome that in this story, right? And so the story that Brett told was, and this is a story that's true for him, is that, hey, he struggles with this as well, right? And so the story was, he woke up that morning, he went to, turn off his alarm, and he was just tired, and he decided not to go running. And he had never told a story like this before in his marketing. And I think for people who aren't in the industry, it probably seems like, that story's not that big of a deal, but it was really powerful for him, because he's the guy that started Territory. He's supposed to have it all together, inspiring people. And so for him, it was really vulnerable.
Right. I like that. It's a great example of, it doesn't have to be this life or death thing. It's just being honest, because like you said, the tendency, and this is always my beef with sort of corporate retail, big brand marketing, is that even when they try to be transparent, it just feels so contrived, Yeah. It's like on a job interview when somebody says, well, what's one thing, that you don't do well? Oh, well, I find myself working much too hard. I'm the one you got to kick out of the office. I'm just a little too dedicated. Oh, shut up. Right. Yeah. And then it's that same kind of vibe you get from a lot of brand marketing. And so for your guy to come out and go, guess what? I blew it off today. I had every intention of running. I need to run today. And I woke up and I was like, can't do it.
And he was scared to send that,
I bet. Yeah. Because it's just goes against this whole image that we're projecting. And so what was the result when he did that?
Oh man, it's so powerful, right? So I think there was an immediate result for him when he clicked send. He was like, oh man, that felt good. That was just real. Right. And then the response for his customers was huge. I think that email was right before the launch opened up, and it got a 58% open rate, 38% click-through rate, tons of responses, like people just responding to the email saying, thank you so much for sending this. Like, this is what I struggle with. People felt like he just got them.
That is my top metric, by the way,
number of responses.
Yeah. Actual replies. It's one. Yeah. You can look at all the other stats, but they're sort of invisible. Somebody hits reply and puts a face to how they felt about what you wrote. You can't beat that. That's when I know I've nailed one, when I get a lot of that. Okay, cool. And finally, number 5.
Number 5 is make it feel exclusive. And what I'm talking about in this section is how to make it feel exclusive, how to make it feel special, and then also how to create urgency to really help drive sales, for the launch, or even for just, one of your regular emails. The elements of exclusivity that I go over in here, there's 4 of them, are number 1, a limited number of spots available. So there's only so many spots available. Maybe there's only so many products that people can buy. And that's it, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2 is there's an invitation needed. So not just anybody can join. For Territory, you had to be on the email list to even know that this launch was happening.
And so do you specifically point out, hey, you're only seeing this because you're subscribed to this list, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and it helps actually drive signups as well, because there's kind of this buzz being created around it. And so if people want to be a part of it, they have to join the email list.
Right. Great.
Yep.
Cool. And then, so what about, for you say there's only so many of these available, or it's only happening in this specific time frame. And then did he mail around that exclusivity more than he normally would?
Yeah, totally.
Reminders, carts closing, that sort of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So there was, I can't remember, but I think it was like 100 spots available, right? There's only 100 spots available. And There was one email that went out the morning the launch opened, and then one email later in the day that was like, hey, there's only, X number of spots left. And there was a couple different tiers for the launch as well. And the top tier only had like 2 spots left at that point. So it really helps drive this feeling of like, oh man, if I want in on this, I got to do it now.
Excellent. Mike, thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for coming on and sharing this. This is a really great article. And, again, it applies to so much marketing in a lot of industries and niches, but particularly for retail. I love that we got somebody out there teaching us how we can bring it, from the store to the digital doorstep here. And so the article is the 5 elements of a high converting retail brand launch, or just come to copychief.com and search for, just type in the word, I think brand will do it. Bring up Mike's article.
Yep.
Mike Renard, and your site is chimpwolf.com. Highly recommend you go over there and get on Mike's list, because his daily, I don't know if you're writing daily or, several emails a week, and they're all fantastic. So thanks for being here, bro. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks a lot. It's good talking to you guys.
Thanks, Mike. So, Kevin, what do you have coming up for the Copy Chiefs next time?
Well, next week, we're going to stay on this theme of story, and long overdue, going to have my man Scott McKinstry join us. Scott has been writing for the Copy Chief blog for 2 years since it started, and he has a series called Story Sells. It's by far one of the most popular things on the blog. Every one of his articles is really eye-opening. So he's going to come on and talk about story openers, using some examples from Disney and how we can write better story in our copy.
Oh, man, looking forward to that. Thanks again, Mike. Mike's over at chimpwolf.com. And Kevin, let's get back on the mic soon and start talking.
All right, brother. Looking forward to it.
You've been listening to Copy Chief Radio. Thank you for tuning in. If you're digging what we are laying down for you, then your next step is to go over to iTunes, type in Copy Chief Radio into the search bar, and when you find a show, subscribe. We will be back in your earbuds next week.
This is the podcastfactory.com.